So there's a Facebook meme that says, "Why do I wish people happy holidays?" From November 1st to January 15th, there are approximately 29 religious festivals observed by 7 of the world's major traditions. Happy holidays indeed. For a ritual maker, there are a great number of things to like about that, and many places to find inspiration. However, as many of us do, I have a very conflicted view of the holidays, or of these holidays. I dread the extravagant consumerism of these times and the frantic pace of holiday parties. So many people I've loved and with whom I celebrated holidays have died, and I not only miss the people, but also the traditions, mostly quiet, that belong to that tribe. It may seem odd to you that I come from a family of quiet observers of holidays. You should have met my nephew. But I miss those people enough that it can make it really hard to join in any other reindeer games. Additionally, I've lost the belief structure for some of the holidays that were once most important to me. But there are, I think, at least 2 ways to look at all these holy days. We can consider celebrating them, depending upon our culture, which, depending upon our culture, may or may not be appropriate, or we can observe them. UUism adds some interesting possibilities to those holidays. We have people who arrive here from so many traditions, some of whom have relinquished belief structures but retained the cultural aspects of those holidays. They may want to include their traditional practices in our holiday observances. Welcome. Really, we don't have enough Jews, we have no potato pancakes, I think that's a problem. But you know me, holidays mean food. The things that interest me the most in these festival days are the darkness and the wonder. So many traditions explore the mystery and the miraculous. I thought I might get to both in this sermon, but we stuck with mystery. So let's talk about the dark. I have another sermon or two where I can explore the miraculous. I heard it at the Thanksgiving table. Maybe you did as well. Can't wait for the solstice to happen and for us to start back to the light. Hold on. If ever there were a year when we might consider the actual purpose of the dark of the year, this would be a good one. There is so much churn going on in the world and so much of it up here on the surface. It's tiring, it's frightening, and I see no easy fixes. So it might be good for us, as individuals and as a community, to stop and sink down into the darkness. Quiet contemplation could be indulged. Odds and ends might be sorted and put away. Careful repairs could be undertaken. A bit of rest would be helpful for everyone. Some comfortable companionship could soothe and amuse. Shared tasks might be planned and accomplished when more than one brain or set of hands is engaged. A new project might be embarked upon. Old truths might be revealed, and new truths might make their way out into the open. Yarns can be woven into both cloth and story. These are the hallmarks of the quiet time. This is not what the world wants us to do. Somehow the time of quiet and repair, the time of hunkering down in the warmth, has been claimed as a time of throwing ourselves into obligatory gaiety, shopping, and parties. Instead of brilliant starry skies, quiet twinkling trees, or bravely flickering menorahs, people set up lawn displays that have more electric lights than some developing nations. Instead of a world muffled by snow, we're enjoined to deck the halls at decibels just south or maybe just north of legal. Pay no attention to the silence and the mystery. And just as we try to dash past the dark of the year and the important work it does for the natural world, we also tend to ignore the dreaming and planning part of a project in favor of the let's go now segments. In organizational development school, they used to call that ready, fire, aim. If we don't take the time in the beginning, we weaken the project and we weaken the anticipation. Being in the dark is seen as a bad thing, but dwelling in the sacred dark is different from living in ignorance. It is a time for rumination, repair, and rebirth. I have always loved Advent. I learned to love it in Sweden, where it is a very secular holiday, filled with daily treats on a calendar. My delight deepened with a communion of women when we thought of this time as a time of fullness. It was conceived of in its Northern European Christian incarnation, because, trust me, people did long anticipation of the return of the sun in other religious traditions. But it's conceived of as we know it now, as the last month of a pregnancy, a time of preparing, a time of waiting, a time, as the poem just said, of pregnant negativities. You are full, but nothing yet has arrived. Each of us asked ourselves in the Communion of Women what we wanted to bring to fruition in the coming year. Then we wrapped those dreams in a beautiful cloth and put them in a basket until the new year. We spoke about them, or we kept quiet. We dreamed about them, or simply let them be. But we remembered that they were there. This year, I will put my peace rock in a basket and let new ways of being at peace come to me. I will look for new styles and meanings of personal peace. I will look for new ways to encourage community peace. I will pray for world peace, even as we work together. There may be other projects that I tuck in that basket, or there may not be. Next Friday, the 24 days of Advent begins. I have a lovely story from one of my wedding couples this year. My groom, knowing his wife was crazy about his then girlfriend, about all things Christmas, and B, that her grandfather had often built things for his family, decided to build her an Advent calendar as part of his proposal. He stuffed it full of 24 pairs of socks and an empty ring box. It was a pa-dum-pum, an engaging story. But it won him an enthusiastic yes. And at the rehearsal breakfast, we laughed and made suggestions about what he might fill it with next year. She loved her ring, but she also loved her Advent socks. She could name the dates for most of the pairs of socks that she got out of there. There were a lot of Star Trek socks. She was thrilled. But it was completely charming. And I thought, I like socks, but when I need them, I buy them. I'd probably rather have good chocolate in mine, and just in case someone wanted to build me an Advent calendar. But here at UUCSV, we also observe Advent, even if you're a somewhat unwitting participant. We haul out the wreath and the candles every year. I sometimes write a devotional series for it. I found a new wreath picture I like, so who knows. We'll have our winter greening next Sunday after the service as Denise leads us in orchestrated decorating mayhem. Lenore and I have talked about opening the labyrinth. What would it mean to walk it one week in hope, the next in peace, and so on down the line. And for the past couple years, we've gathered I had read this before, sorry. For the past couple years, we've gathered money through the Alternative Advent Calendar. And this year, the money will go to Guests at Your Table, a project of the UU Service Committee. A $40 donation will make you a member of the Service Committee, so count your CDs honestly. You'll get there in no time. I think you'll find this year's Advent options at Coffee Hour, which is being held not in the social room, but what in today we're calling the Social Cause Room, which is the gathering space for the RGL section. They're very excited we're coming back there. So they loved it when we had when we did our first change gathering back there and lit the candles, and they got to sing us out. They thought that was a lot of fun. But there will be all sorts of petitions for us to sign and postcards for us to write. Hooray for socially active kids. Who would have believed that we'd be part of smashing Horcruxes, which sounds like very much like a UU heavy metal band, probably fronted by Worth and Dignity. It dawns on me that only UU heavy metal bands would be selling cloth grocery bags for sale with their pictures on the front. Can't you see people at a heavy metal band with? All right, sorry. Holiday season. Liturgically, in the Christian tradition, Advent begins on the 3rd when we light the first candle of hope, to be followed by peace, joy, and love. Of all the celebrations, this is one I observe. One of the things about long hours of the dark is that burning candles can make me very happy. There's a lot of chat these days about the Danish notion of hygge, which means sort of cozy well-being. It's a much bigger word than that. Sort of embodied coziness, which is, we don't do. But more than that, and candles are a big part of that for me. And more than that, it dawns on me actually as I think about it, I have a very seasonal house. I get the sun from the west, so in the winter it never is high enough over my the yard arm to make it into my downstairs. So in the summer it's bright and sunny, and in the winter it's sort of gloomier and softer. But so deliberately filling my house with hope, adding peace to that, it's week by week making a conscious invitation to live with those emotions and those dedications. My Advent candles are not in a wreath, they're in a straight line, and I burn them down to a nub and light another. They aren't perfectly balanced, they're just little generators of goodwill and reminders to find my center. The candles also bring memories of my family of origin. Mom would light them about 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, and then sort of sporadically through the week until the next candle was lit about 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. It's a layered observance for me. I remember my family. I remember Sweden. I remember hope, peace, joy, and love. In a year when I am despondent about the amount of hate and fear, it is good for me to remind myself of lineage, communities, and possibilities. Most of us have a treasured observance during this holiday season. Although it's true some of us have only tortured memories of holidays, and that's surely a pity and not an easy thing to overcome. But this year we have a home in which to build new memories for everyone and new connections in the season of the dark, sacred night. Take a look at Jean's quilt when you walk out the door. We ask ourselves what it is about the holidays that attracts us, or we can ask ourselves what it is about the holidays that attracts us, comforts us, inspires us. We can ask ourselves what we'd like to let go of. Do we need to be more social or more contemplative? Do we need to hunker down inside or go for long walks in cold woods? Sorry, I can't promise snow. Do we need more Christmas or more midwinter? Do we need our giving to be more charitable than piled present? That's one of the things that has made sense during this season for me recently. My gifts these days for everyone but the children are donations to a charity that reflects their lives. That literally changes my ability to breathe through these days. Gift giving has always terrorized me. Now it's a joy. Although I still overspend, I feel less guilty. We get to make choices for joy in our holiday seasons. We have permission to fashion the holidays in our images. There are people who are not welcome at their families' tables or pews. Invite them here. They may not be able to join in family celebrations, but may welcome the freedom of helping to shape new observances of familiar traditions to be part of and to make their own. This year, for the first time, we will be celebrating our Christmas Eve service right here. When the worship committee talked about this, our first instinct was to return to the chapel. But then we thought, no, let's let that beloved, long-held service begin to happen here. There are now people in this community for whom the chapel isn't the real church, even though we started there. Let's grow our holiday traditions in our own home. We'll make this our home by building traditions. We will feel more welcome here as our traditions become more familiar through repetition. And hey, we're UUs. Our holidays don't need to look like anyone else's. Susan Robichaud and I were talking wistfully about the Icelandic holiday tradition, the Christmas book flood. Everyone there gets books for Christmas. They sell more books per capita than any other country. Apparently in the States, a few people buy a lot of books. Over there, everybody buys a few. They borrow more books from the library than any other country. And Christmas Eve, which has just over 4 hours of sunlight, is spent cozied up reading. Now, we'll have over 9 hours of sunlight, so you're not so hard off. But still, there's lots of time to read, with, of course, time out for evening services, and oh, there's one that morning, too. But Susan and I thought, well, what if we had a book exchange on the 23rd? Everyone could bring a book that we'd like to share, one book, old or new, kid books, grown-up books, fiction or non. It wouldn't have to be simply for UUs. It could be anyone. Set up categories around the room, lay out the books, and let people walk around. Bring a book to leave and walk away with something new to you. So if anybody's interested in playing book flood, talk to me. Oh, I saw one hand already in the back. Right. A friend of mine has offered to do a midwinter bonfire. He's the guy I told you about who celebrated the Burning Man. So it won't be a small bonfire. And so that's going to happen. And we have to decide, and maybe we'll put it to a vote. We'll put it to a vote. There are a lot of people right here. If you were going to come to a bonfire, would you rather it was Thursday night on the night of midwinter, but the children are still in school and have to go to school the next morning, or on Friday evening? Friday. Right. There are so many ways for us to welcome and to celebrate the dark. There are so many ways it can heal us from the frenzy. I guess the only question is, are we willing to let ourselves be healed? I know that sad is real. So get outside, get your 17 minutes of sunlight and some exercise, and then find new ways to enjoy the dark. It's going to be dark. Let's find ways to revel in that. Because we can't afford to let this beauty slip by us simply because we're conditioned to believe that only light has virtue. All indigenous tribal religions celebrate both. Are the seeds of our racism in our opting only for the light? There is mystery in the dark. Things become cold, hard scientific fact only after a long time of wondering. For mysteries to be solved, we have to live with the mystery. Seeds need to rest and gather energy for their summer explosions. We need quiet to balance the frenzy. I went to Dr. Google to find out that in the Northern Hemisphere, we actually have 184 days of longer sunlight and 181 days of longer night. But both day and night are important. If you believe in the biblical creation stories, God's first action, which he called good, I can't say that word about that stuff without saying the God he. That's such an old story. Which God called good was to divide the world into light and dark, day and night. So I entreat you, linger in the beauty, open your hearts to its possibilities. We have so much to learn. And I think traditions to build and observe, and maybe even holidays to celebrate. All of this together in our new home. Blessed be.